And I think when alts run too high, there's always a correction. And I've after our volcano interview, I kind of flipped bearish because the alts were running, and we just know like that is unsustainable. And when they go, Bitcoin always will follow down a bit, but then we kind of shake them off and we go back up. We'll probably see something change now because of all these structural market changes. And I think you're going to see like a super cycle, omega cycle, something where it's just moving differently and upwards.
Samson begins with a macro diagnosis. The United States no longer has natural buyers for its debt. Foreign nations are reducing exposure, BRICS countries are explicitly moving away from the dollar, and traditional holders like Japan and China face their own internal economic pressures. The result is a vacuum forming under the Treasury market. To stabilize demand, the U.S. increasingly depends on private issuers like Tether, which Samson notes would rank as the 18th largest buyer of U.S. Treasuries if it were a country. But the bigger issue is structural. With $38 trillion in debt compounding at escalating interest costs and no organic demand growth, the system becomes unsustainable. The U.S. needs an escape hatch. Mow argues that this escape hatch is a sovereign Bitcoin reserve.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
If you look at the overall landscape, like why is the US so bullish on Bitcoin and unfortunately crypto and digital assets? I think it's a necessity. They need it because no one is buying treasuries anymore. The world is moving away from the dollar or trying to move away from the dollar, BRICS countries especially, and there just are no more buyers. And the traditional buyers are also having economic woes back home, right? So they need to have stablecoin issuers like Tether, that I think Tether is the 18th largest buyer if they were a country, to shore up demand. And I think $38 trillion in debt is not something that they can ignore for much longer. So they do need to build a Bitcoin reserve, a sizable one, to mitigate that debt, because people are kind of used to the number now, but 38 trillion is a crazy big number. And you're pretty bankrupt. And, who wants to own more of your debt? I don't think it's possible to keep continuing it on that track. But also, just compounding of the interest is going to be ridiculous too. So something has to be done, and I think they realize the solution is Bitcoin. I would say everything has changed, and I go back to the ETFs. A large part of maybe that cyclical structure that we've seen is because when there is a large spike in demand and interest in Bitcoin, the exchanges have always been the bottleneck. Like, they would not be able to KYC people fast enough, and that is how you dull the rampant movement upwards, like Omega style candles. But now with the ETFs, that's not an issue. I think as we move to more in-kind issuances, the moves up are going to be more pronounced. And there's no barrier now because the buying is aggregated. It's all aggregation, and that is because of the ETF. So I like to think of ETFs as a portal for capital to go into Bitcoin, and the portal is wide open now, and there's no limit to the throughput of that portal. All the traditional capital can come in. And then look at the Bitcoin treasury companies like Strategy. That's also another big portal too. They can tap into fixed income markets, the bond markets. And again, there is no bottleneck because the buying is aggregated. So I think it's just a matter of time, but I never really believed in the cycles. You can say that there is a cycle because there is the 4-year halving. And you can say there is a cycle because presidential elections are 4 years in the US, and that largely drives a lot of the cyclical nature of the markets. But the fact that we have 3 cycles doesn't mean anything. It's like you flip the coin 3 times and you got heads 3 times. Does that mean we're going to always have heads? No. So we'll probably see something change now because of all these structural market changes. And I think you're going to see like a super cycle, omega cycle, something where it's just moving differently and upwards. It's all happening. It's just a matter of time. I think there are a number of things happening. Maybe it's the the shakeout recently. We dropped 20K,
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
kind of
we got the major candle just in the wrong direction.
But you can see like the volatility has declined a lot. Like I think that was the largest flush ever of liquidations. That largest flush ever of liquidations, and all we did was drop 20. Altcoins dropped to, down
Like
to the
90%.
depths of hell.
Yeah.
But Bitcoin largely unaffected, and it goes to show like the resilience is there. It's just there are factors that will push us down or keep us down. You can theorize about many things, but maybe it's not one answer. It's many different things. Maybe there is an exchange selling Bitcoin that they don't have, like FTX did. Maybe it is some paper Bitcoin. Maybe it's whales rotating. Maybe it's people moving into ETFs. I don't know. Maybe there's people taking profits. All of these things can be possible. We don't know. But what we do know is there is a limit. And what we do know is it's impossible that Michael Saylor gets 10% of the supply. At these levels, he's going to get 10%. Like that's just ridiculous. So the price has to move sooner or later. And I think it's going to be sooner. The other thing probably is like alts were running too hot. Ethereum was like, getting past its all-time highs. Ripple is at like $3.50, which is ridiculous. And I think when alts run too high, there's always a correction. And I've after our Volcano interview, I kind of flipped bearish because the alts were running, and we just know like that is unsustainable. And when they go, Bitcoin always will follow down a bit, but then we kind of shake them off and we go back up. We're so early.
I know you always tell me. You told me that earlier this year, but it's it's hard. I guess it's hard. It's not hard to believe. Like the logical part of my brain is saying, yeah, we're super early, and then the emotional side of my brain is saying, no, we're not early.
Well, I see. Different people understand things differently. So I think Saylor also knows we're early, but I believe he understands it's ending soon. That's why he is buying. He's like, I'll buy the tops.
Yeah.
When he has the capital, he'll deploy it.
Yeah.
It's not about, okay, I'll wait a bit, because he sees that urgency. But another good indicator is, why are we early? Because we have DATs, or digital asset treasury companies, that are buying Ethereum. Like, why would any rational person or investment committee authorize something like that, where you're buying something that has 70% pre-mine, is largely controlled by the guys that launched the ICO, and one of the DATs is owned by one of the guys that launched the token. It's a sign that we are really early. It's a double-edged sword. So the US has an SPR now, and they added to it from seizure.
Yeah.
And I think
they did. It was like a lot of Bitcoin.
$14 billion dollars of Bitcoin. And that could be a dangerous thing. Like if you cannot pass legislation like Cynthia Lummis's Bitcoin Act to accumulate in a non-budget neutral way.
Well, technically it was a non-budget.
Yeah, but
right?
seizures are non-budget neutral. Seizures are budget neutral, right? They didn't spend money on that.
Yeah.
And if they can only accumulate through seizures, then the motivation is to accumulate by seizing people's Bitcoin, which is not ideal. But I think Bitcoin is less prone to seizure than, say, gold or anything physical. But of course, we have big pots of Bitcoin with the custodians. But I think the goal should be that they accumulate through the Bitcoin Act in a non-budget neutral manner. And I think the slowdown really is just it takes time, and the government shutdown as well, probably. But I think it will move forward because it's a necessity.
Mow highlights one of the most underreported developments in global Bitcoin game theory, nation-state mining. Countries with stranded or excess energy can monetize it directly through mining. The example of Bhutan is powerful. The country now holds over $1 billion in Bitcoin and has financed new infrastructure using mining revenue. Samson extends the concept to Paraguay, Canada, and other nations with hydro resources. The economic playbook is simple: convert unused energy into hard money. The oil nations of the 20th century monetized hydrocarbons. The energy-rich nations of the 21st century can monetize electrons. This is how Bitcoin becomes geopolitically embedded.
The alternative to fixing it is a debt jubilee, a reset, a great fiat reset. You could also have a rebasing to Bitcoin. You say the debt is redeemable for sats. But before you do that, you should have a nice big chunk of Bitcoin in your reserves. But it's difficult to say. I don't really know what's going to happen. Like, the fiat experiment has gone wildly out of control. And I think you could say the nature of democracy contributes to that, right? Like the nature of democracy is people get free stuff.
Yeah.
And then they vote. And now it's the case in Canada. Like, why are the Liberals still in power? Because a lot of the older generation that get a lot of free things kept them in power. So it's sort of a question. We're at a crossroads right now. Where do we go? And it's hard to say. We can go on to a Bitcoin standard and I think repair a lot of that damage, or things get dark and the government needs to feed itself. They need money and they're going to get money by any means possible. Now, there's an opportunity there too, which is you can wean them off the money printing by getting them to mine Bitcoin. And we have a really good example of that today, which is Bhutan. They have over $1 billion of Bitcoin. They're building a new airport from their Bitcoin holdings. And they've shown that stranded energy, excess energy converts to money. These are things that I've been saying for years, and now there's a very pertinent, very tangible example of it. And we were in Paraguay. We did a presentation and we met with the government there. Hopefully they could do something. We ran a calculation. Every year they're just running off 1,200 to 1,400 Bitcoin.
Yeah, the Itapu Dam.
Yeah.
Biggest dam in the world.
But it's the same for Canada. There's a massive amount of hydropower that's just run off or sold at a deep discount to the US. But many countries have excess or untapped energy and they could easily tap that, just as Middle Eastern countries tap the oil reserves and sell that. Now you can turn water into money. It's very natural that that happens. I think when you mess with someone's money, they get angry, right? And Bitcoin is your money, it's my money, it's a lot of plebs out there. Their life savings are in this and it has to work. And when you feel someone is mucking around with it, changing it, allowing it to be turned into something else, then emotions run high and people get upset and things are said that might be inciting more anger or, just lashing out at people viciously. And we're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's healthy. I think we should be de-escalating and figuring out how we move forward. But I think one interesting thing that seems to be an agreement point is that we should do something about it. We should figure out some sort of proposal. I think it's probably going to be a soft fork that limits spam. And I believe there's enough appetite from all parties to put something serious forward and fix things at a consensus level rather than at the policy level. Policy only works if everyone agrees on the policy. And it's being bypassed right now because it's not uniformly enforced. So people that want to spam the networks, they can go directly to a big mining pool that wants to mine big pictures and it'll go in the chain. And I think largely a lot of these policy things were implemented in the past because everyone was kind of acting as on their best behavior and in the best interest of the network. So we all follow these policy rules, which are sort of like guidelines for how you should behave. But if someone's breaking those rules and it's inciting other people to break them too, then the policy stops working.
Absolutely.
So we kind of have to fix it at a consensus level. And I think there is more or less a unanimous agreement that we don't want spam and that Bitcoin is money. This has been an arguing point back and forth. People were saying the core side don't think Bitcoin is money, but then some of them came out and said, yes, I do believe it's money. But there's such a level of nuance to this that a lot of the argumentative points are lost or miscommunicated or talking past each other. Because another facet is people are saying, you can't stop spam, absolutely. But I don't think anything can really stop spam completely 100%. And then like Adam is saying, well, we can't stop it, so we shouldn't bother stopping it. But I think he's coming around. We had a discussion today, and I think he also thinks we should do a soft fork to limit at the consensus level. So maybe we're able to move past this, but a lot of people are angry at this. I was at angry and confused. I was at a BitFX Securities event, and we're talking about securities and tokenized equities and whatnot. And we asked for questions from the audience, and one guy's question is, well, what about the core knots and spam and op returns?
It's like, what does this have to do with anything?
Yeah, because people are worried about that, right? And I think it's better if we do de-escalate, we stop being inflammatory and we work on a real solution, because everyone does want something. Like if you look at knots, they want spam to stop. They want filters. And if filters don't work at the node level that effectively, then it should be at the consensus level. And from my own personal view, I've always thought we should have done it at consensus. I've never said we run the filters and filter harder because it's not absolute. It's still bypassable. It's a question of what is spam, and I think we agree what spam is, but it is a slippery slope and it is not clear. Like, is it someone sticking a JPEG or an inscription? Is it a layer 2 anchor like Citria BitVM type of anchor? Or is it, I don't know, a counterparty Omni transaction that's anchoring too? And there are varying degrees of understanding and agreement of what is spam. But by and large, I think the definition of spam is it's something you don't want, right? People have said before, the spammers are paying fees, therefore it is not spam. But I think that's a very weak and false argument because you get a piece of spam mail, they paid the postage. Like, yeah, it's still spam because you don't want it, right?
Yeah.
So it's really what do people not want? And I think we have to kind of distill to a certain level that it is probably the scammy things.
Yeah.
Maybe not layer 2 anchors, but also there's that whole argument before, like everything is data, Bitcoin is data. But I think you have to also separate out what is Bitcoin itself. If you download the Bitcoin client and you send me a Bitcoin transaction, let's say it's 2009 and you're like one of the first miners and you mine 50 coins and you send me one, that's the data. The data is the native thing of the network, which is Bitcoin. It's not anchoring something else. But I think we largely agree anchoring a little bit of data for a layer 2 or something is...
Samson addresses an increasingly divisive issue inside Bitcoin: spam, inscriptions, and block space abuse. He argues that current policy-level filters are not enough. They are easily bypassed, and miners have incentives to include high-fee but low-value data. The solution, he suggests, is a consensus-level soft fork that limits spam structurally. The community largely agrees that Bitcoin is money and that block space should not be consumed by non-monetary junk. But reaching alignment on precise definitions is difficult. The challenge is balancing permissionless innovation with network integrity. Yet momentum appears to be forming around a serious proposal. If Bitcoin can resolve this calmly and collaboratively, it strengthens its long-term resilience.